Welcome. This is my in-depth review. I'm Robert Apino, and I'm going to take you through creating a climate for innovation in education, reframing structure, culture, and leadership practices, written by JoAnn Wong-Kam. Okay, this was her dissertation, which was completed in 2012 with the Rossier School of Education at the University of Southern California. The University of Southern California was founded in 1880 in Los Angeles, California, and they currently have 43,000 students, 19,000 of which are undergraduates, and 24,000 of which are graduate and professional. Currently, there are 3,945 full-time faculty members, and there are most notable alumni, and this is just a few. This is George Lucas on the left, Neil Armstrong in the middle, and none other than John Carpenter on the right. For her committee, her chair was Dr. Lawrence Pickus on the left, and her two chair committee members were Dr. Dominic Brewer and Dr. Melora Sundit. A summary of her dissertation, best summed up, would be essentially this is about innovation in schools and the call for a new way of teaching and learning, and this idea of breaking the bureaucratic system to innovate. So making school relevant and meeting demands of students today and the workforces that they are going to go into. So she starts off by looking at innovation, and innovation's a massive word and there's lots of different definitions for it. So she uses the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, to distinguish four types of innovation. So there's product, process, marketing, and organization. And I have read a number of other dissertations which have used a similar model for describing and distinguishing what innovation is and what you should be looking for in an organization, in this case in a school. She uses Bolman and Deal's four-frame model. That's actually Deal on the left and Bolman on the right, looking at organizational framework to explore, create, and sustain a climate of innovativeness or innovativeness. Okay, and she essentially is looking for organizational structure within the school, organizational culture, and leadership practices. Okay, this is a qualitative case study at Punahou School, which is a K-12 school in Honolulu. They do identify the school, which I'll talk a little bit about in the strengths and limitations. And she conducted interviews. Okay, so approach of completing the review process, I had this really great dissertation review process form, which was provided by my professor, Dr. Beth Roos. And this is one example of what one column or one component looks like in it. So this is the introduction to the dissertation. It gives you a set of criteria, and then you assess whether the quality, whether they have it, what the quality is of the content, the writing structure, then you can give it some justification. So you'll notice in this component, I liked the focus because it was on innovation, and I liked how she kind of cleverly criticized the state of education in the U.S., but she was pretty neutral about it. Okay, and she did give some evidence specifically with science and math and created a real need for the study. Okay, some of the strengths in her overall study was the confidentiality of the participants. So her participants in the study, she maintained complete anonymity of them and went to great lengths to make sure that was done right. She also, her participants were purposefully sampled. So she actually asked her administrative team first who they might recommend. They gave her a big list of potential people in each division. And then from that, she looked at what subject are they in, what's their role, what's their gender, what's their background culturally. And she tried to create the most diverse population she could get within her school. Okay. Also, one of her strengths is she got an additional interviewer to conduct one of her interviews because she thought that it might be a limitation if she did that interview because of her role as a supervisor, sort of middle admin position at the school, and she didn't want that to impact her, in this case, her one participant that she was going to be interviewing. Some limitations in the study. There were 3 faculty members from each division interviewed, and there was 9 total interviews. Okay, so these were about an hour-long interviews, but there's only interviews. I thought there could have been lots of room for a survey out to the staff, a survey out to the leadership team. I just thought there could have been a better way of capturing some of this innovation and whether or not this school is considered innovative and their program matches that. I thought there could have been other ways of collecting the data so she could better triangulate the data to make more sense out of what she was getting. Other limitations, again, I say face-to-face interviews only, and also there's no mention of IRB. Okay, this study takes place in the school. The school's name is identified, so we know which school she's looking at. That's not hidden, but there's no mention of how she went about doing that, like how she got that through the review board and just that process that wasn't in the dissertation. Okay. Another limitation was, again, her role as the K-12 or K-2 supervisor. Okay. This is a limitation in the sense that although she got an interviewer to come in and help her with one participant she was interviewing, anybody else, the other 8 people she interviewed, they knew she was the K-2 supervisor, which is like a mid-admin level position. She's one of the leaders in the school. So that could have impacted the responses she was getting. Also, this is a single case study based on one school. So we've got a nice snapshot of this school, and it can be replicated in other schools, which is great, but it is just one snapshot. It's one case study based on one school. Okay, reflections for me, this study really, I see it as sparks. Okay, it presents a lot of great seminal texts in there that I've begun to read or need to read. So I was able to, through going through this, I got to see what other seminal texts are out there for looking at innovation in schools. So that was really helpful. Seeing another model for how you would do a case study was incredibly helpful. I think along the lines with that, what maybe I thought was missing, as I sort of highlighted in some of the limitations, it gave me some areas to see how she talked about innovation and how she didn't talk about it, because I've read other studies on it. So in short, it was great to see how a case study could be conducted at one school, and this school in Honolulu is very similar to the context that I work in. So seeing how she did that was really helpful for me, and I'd like to replicate some of the things she mentioned. So this was a great study on innovation and how she unpacks it, and then how she brings in organizational leadership with Bowman and Deal, and what that can potentially bring about. And here are some attributions from our images. Overall, great study. Lots of things to think about, and then also a couple things to consider.